for paramedics surrounded the baby's tiny body in the center of the Millionaire family's marble living room. Their hands moved too fast. Tiny oxygen mask. Monitor beeping in alert. Short, tense, technical voices. But nothing worked. A clear airway. That doesn't make sense, one of them murmured, no longer able to hide his nervousness. Saturation plummeting. Another announced, "We're losing her." The team leader stared at the monitor, incredulous. Years on the road. And I'd never seen a child deteriorate like this while all other procedures failed. It was like fighting something invisible. And near the kitchen, almost unnoticed, always was the au pair. Her name was Camila Reyes, 24 years old. New to that mansion, new to that country. Invisible enough to observe what no one else was seeing. Her eyes never left the baby's little face. Not her lips, not her breasts, her mouth. Because there was something there, ... Too wrong to ignore. Before continuing this story, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Write it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories go. And if you value intense, human stories full of twists and turns, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps a lot in keeping these stories alive. Now, come back with me. In that second, Camila saw something that 4 professionals had missed. When one of the paramedics repositioned the mask, the baby's head tilted slightly back, and the light from the chandelier reflected inside her open little mouth. That's where Camila saw it. It wasn't blood, it wasn't a common injury. It was a strange, opaque stain stuck to the inside of the gum, grayish, almost greenish, a shade that shouldn't be there. Camila's heart raced. That color, she knew it. Years ago, in the humble neighborhood where he grew up. A child had fallen ill after putting something in his mouth that wasn't food. Doctors were slow to understand. First aid failed. And when they discovered the cause, it was too late. The memory came rushing back, uninvited. The baby in the room was starting to turn that same color. Meanwhile, the adults in the house remained motionless. The mother appeared near the stairs, wearing an expensive robe, with a vacant look, as if she were sedated. She took 2 hesitant steps. What's happening to my daughter? She murmured, her voice slurred. The housekeeper gripped her arm too tightly. The paramedics are taking care of everything, ma'am. You need to sit down. The nanny remained leaning against the wall, her hands trembling, but her face dry. No tears, no cries. Only tension. The driver watched from the window, arms crossed, looking at the garden, not at the baby. Camila felt a chill run down her spine. That wasn't the normal reaction of someone who loves a child. It was the reaction of someone who was waiting for a resolution. One of the paramedics took a deep breath. She's not responding to anything. The leader made the decision. Let's move her now. If we stay here, she won't survive. But Camila knew, if they rushed out like that, they would be treating a respiratory failure that wasn't the real problem. And that 10-month-old baby wouldn't make it to the hospital alive. She looked at her gums again. The stain was still there. Unmistakable. Time was running out. Camila swallowed hard. She could stay silent. Go back to being invisible. And live forever with the weight of knowing she could have done something. Or she could speak up and become a problem inside that mansion. The leader was already gesturing to raise the stretcher when Camila stepped forward. Her voice was low, but firm. Wait. All heads turned to her. Silence filled the room for a full second. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a plea. It was almost a whisper, but it cut through the air like a blade. The leader slowly raised his eyes, clearly irritated. Madame, please step aside. We need to work. Camila didn't move. Her hands trembled, but her eyes remained fixed on the almost motionless baby. You're doing everything right, Camila said, her voice faltering at the end. But that's not what she has. A paramedic let out a short, nervous laugh. She is in respiratory arrest. I know, Camila replied. But it didn't start in the lungs. The leader stepped forward. Who are you? I'm Neo Pair. I've been working here for 2 months. His expression changed. It was no longer irritation. It was disbelief. We can't follow suggestions from someone without medical training. Then look, Camila insisted. Please. Just look inside her mouth. The housekeeper moved for the first time. That's absurd. She's getting in the way. But the leader hesitated. Perhaps it was Camila's tone. Perhaps it was the fact that nothing was working, or perhaps it was the experience of someone who had already seen too many strange situations to rule out any possibility. 1 second, he said. He knelt down and tilted the baby's head, pulling the mask aside for a moment. The light illuminated the inside of her mouth. Silence returned. What is that? The paramedic murmured. Camila felt her legs weaken. The stain was still there. It's not irritation, Camila said quickly. Nor is it an infection, it's ingestion. Ingested what? Asked another paramedic. Something prevents the body from using oxygen. That's why nothing works. Air gets in, but it's no use. The leader took a deep breath. That would explain the failure to respond, The nanny turned her face away. The housekeeper pursed her lips. The driver looked away from the window for the first time. Who gave this baby something? The paramedic asked loudly. No one answered. The mother tried to get up from the chair, but her legs gave way. My daughter, she murmured, confused. The housekeeper held her shoulders. You need to stay calm, Camila thought. No, she needed to wake up. If that's the case, the leader said, now serious, the protocol changes. He looked at Camila. Have you seen this before? Camila swallowed hard. Once, when I was 17, the child died because they took too long. The paramedic closed his eyes for half a second. Prepared the induction, he ordered. And activated charcoal. Now, the housekeeper stepped forward. That's dangerous. Doing nothing is dangerous, he interrupted. The movements returned, quick and focused. The baby's body reacted with a slight spasm. Then another. Then came the sound, a small choking sound, a weak cry. But real, she breathed. Someone shouted. The monitor beeped differently. The numbers started to climb. Camila fell to the floor, and the tears finally escaped. The color of the baby's lips changed slowly, from blue to purple, from purple to pink. She will survive, said the team leader incredulously. The mother started to cry. This time, for real. But Camila didn't celebrate. Because, while everyone else was watching the baby breathe again, Camila was looking at the adults in the house. And none of them seemed relieved. The housekeeper watched rigidly. The nanny wiped her face, but her eyes didn't match the gesture. The driver was motionless, his jaw clenched. They were not happy. They were frustrated. And in that instant, Camila understood something even worse than almost losing a baby. It hadn't been an accident. And saving that child had just turned Camila into a problem. A problem that house wasn't going to ignore. 2 months earlier, Camila Reyes stood before the iron gates of the mansion, holding a simple suitcase, one of those wheeled ones that have seen many cheap airports. The sun reflected off the imposing white facade of the house, making everything seem unreal as if that place hadn't been made for people like her. After 3 rejected interviews, someone finally said yes. The salary was high. Housing included. Legal contract, the only explicit requirement. Absolute discretion. Camila knew how to be discreet. Being invisible had always been a survival skill. The gate opened with a low hum. She pulled her bag along the white stone path, feeling the sound of her own footsteps echo in that artificial silence. At the main door, a woman awaited her. Tall, hair tied back, rigid posture, impeccable dark outfit, a face that looked as if it hadn't relaxed in decades. You must be Camila. I'm Helena Duarte, the housekeeper. You report directly to me. Yes, ma'am, Camila replied automatically. Helena analyzed everything about her in seconds. The simple clothes, the accent, the overly cautious posture of someone who knows she doesn't belong in that world. Come in, I'll explain the rules. The interior was even more intimidating. Crystal chandeliers, expensive paintings, overly polished floors. Working hours are from 6 to 6 and days off, except for events. You clean common areas, the kitchen and bedrooms. You do not enter the homeowner's office. You do not touch personal belongings. You do not start conversations. You do not ask questions. Camila nodded silently. The family values privacy. Helena stopped abruptly. That includes not commenting on anything you see or hear in here. Do we understand each other? Yes, we are. They went up to the staff wing. Camila's room was small, but clean, better than anywhere she had lived in recent years. Meals are served in the service kitchen. You eat with the nanny and the driver. Punctuality is mandatory. Camila hesitated before asking, "When will I meet the baby's mother?" Something passed by Helena's face too quickly to be identified. "The lady of the house is resting. You will see her when it is appropriate." And he left, closing the door with excessive gentleness. That first night, Camila met Julia, the nanny, who was overly nervous, and Roberto, the driver, who was silent and always observing. "The baby is 10 months old," Julia commented. "She's an angel." "And the parents?" Camila asked. "My father travels a lot. For business, my mother is tired." The conversation ended there. In the first few days, Camila learned the household routine, and she learned what didn't fit in. The baby's mother rarely appeared, always in an expensive bathrobe, always with a distant look, always accompanied by Helena, who controlled everything: schedules, medications, visits, even the time the mother spent holding her daughter. "She needs to rest," Helena would say whenever the baby cried in her mother's arms, and the baby became quieter and quieter. Camila wasn't allowed to touch her, a clear rule, but when she passed by the nursery to clean, she saw those attentive eyes following her movements. Sometimes the baby would reach out her little hand, as if asking for something. Camila felt a strange tightness in her chest. 2 weeks later, she overheard the first conversation she shouldn't have. She was cleaning the hallway when she heard low voices coming from the baby's room. "It's no use anymore." Julia's voice trembled. "She's just a child. Nothing changes," Roberto replied coldly. "Silence," Helena interrupted. "That was decided a long time ago." Camila pushed the cleaning cart too fast, her heart racing. When Helena left the room, their eyes met. Helena's gaze lingered there for seconds that were far too long. Nothing was said, but the message was clear. And then that night came. The night when the crying turned to silence. The night for paramedics failed, and the night Camila stopped being invisible. Because saving that baby wasn't the end of anything. It had been the beginning of something much worse. The ambulance departed with the baby stabilized, the red lights reflecting off the white walls of the mansion like a silent warning. The sound of the siren faded until it disappeared, leaving behind a heavy silence. Camila stood still in the center of the room for a few seconds, unsure what to do with her body. Her legs trembled. The adrenaline began to subside, giving way to something worse: the awareness of what had just happened. The baby's mother was led to a chair near the stairs. She was crying now, truly crying, repeating her daughter's name like a broken prayer. Camila felt genuine relief at seeing that. At least there was humanity there. Helena, the housekeeper, remained standing, her posture perfect, her expression neutral. She didn't touch the mother. Tenderly she touched her with restraint. Julia sat on the arm of the sofa, swinging her foot, wiping her face in a way that was too hurried, as if she wanted to quickly get rid of her own guilt. Roberto went to the window and stood looking out, as if the garden were more important than the child who had almost died. Nobody said anything for a few moments. Then Helena broke the silence, looking directly at Camila. "You were very lucky." There was no gratitude, no surprise, no thank you. "Luck," Camila repeated. Interrupting medical treatment could have ended very badly. Camila felt her stomach clench. "But it's not over." "No," Helena replied. "Not this time." The word hung in the air for too long. The mother lifted her face, confused, as if she didn't understand the subtext. She'll be okay, won't she? The doctors will be able to tell," Helena replied quickly. "Now you need to rest." And he led his mother upstairs with calculated firmness, almost dragging her, as if he were removing a piece from the chessboard before she could ask questions. Camila watched in silence. That wasn't care. It was an order. I can help, Camila said impulsively. Helena stopped halfway up the stairs and slowly turned her face away. That won't be necessary. You've already done more than expected today. That didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like a limit. Later, when the house finally quieted down, Helena called Camila into the service kitchen. The light was low. The clock was striking 1 in the morning. Sit down, Camila obeyed. Helena rested her hands on the counter and leaned forward slightly, as if speaking without needing to raise her voice to hurt. What happened today was ... exceptional. Situations like this don't happen again, and they're not talked about. I just wanted to help, Camila replied carefully. And it helped, Helena said. But don't confuse that with freedom. A short break. This house works because everyone knows exactly their place. Camila felt a shiver. Tomorrow, everything goes back to normal. You continue with your duties. The nanny continues with hers. And what happened tonight stays between these walls. And what if they asked ... Helena didn't blink. No one will ask. Silence. You can go. Camila went up to her room with a heavy heart. She locked the door. She sat on the bed. Only then did she let her body give way. She had saved a life, but she had entered into something bigger than she had imagined. The following morning, the mansion woke up far too early. Helena looked impeccable, as if nothing had happened. Julia prepared baby bottles with mechanical movements. Roberto read messages on his cell phone, indifferent, and then came the news, delivered as if it were routine. The baby was discharged for home observation. Doctors said it was an atypical reaction. Nothing conclusive. Nothing conclusive. Camila felt her stomach sink. Someone in that house knew exactly what had happened. And now they knew that Camila knew too. When Julia passed her in the hallway, she murmured almost silently, "You shouldn't have spoken." Camila stopped. "What?" Julia didn't answer. She just kept walking, as if she were afraid of being seen talking. And at that moment, Camila understood the whole truth. Saving that baby hadn't ended the danger. It had only changed the target. The mansion had cameras. Camila began to notice where they were. Hallways, kitchen, garage, none inside the baby's room. None where the truth could be captured effortlessly. This was no coincidence. And then the baby went back home. The ambulance stopped without siren, without fanfare. The mother got out with the baby girl in her arms, holding her with excessive care, as if any movement could break her. The baby was alive, with color, attentive eyes. Camila felt a brief moment of relief, followed by a tightness in her chest. Because Helena was there. Julia too. And Roberto was closing the gate, looking at the empty street, as if checking if anyone was watching. Life resumed as if nothing had happened. She needs to rest, Helena would repeat whenever her mother tried to spend more time with her daughter. The doctors recommended silence, he said, handing over pills in a small glass cup. Camila began to notice patterns, schedules, routes, who prepared the bottles, who was left alone with the baby. It was almost always Julia. Camila didn't want to believe it. She wanted to be wrong. But the details didn't lie. Julia would get tense when her mother showed up unannounced. She avoided Camila's gaze. And Helena was always too close when something involved the child. On the third night after the baby's return, Camila heard what she could no longer ignore. She was in the hallway, pretending to clean a mirror, when the voices came from the maid's room. "You've lost control," it was Helena. "I almost couldn't." Julia's voice faltered, if she hadn't spoken. "But she spoke," Helena interrupted. "And now we need to adjust." "Adjust what?" "The baby almost died." A silence. "That's always been the risk," Helena said coldly. "Nothing has changed." Camila felt her legs grow heavy, and the au pair, Julia asked in a whisper. Another silence, a longer one. "No one will believe her," Helena replied. "She's temporary, a foreigner. No track record, no allies." Camila stepped back slowly, her heart pounding. That confirmed everything. It hadn't been an accident, and it wasn't over. That night, Camila didn't sleep. She thought about calling the police. She thought about leaving. But leaving meant leaving the baby there. The next day, something changed. The mother appeared at breakfast for the first time in weeks. No robe, no distant expression. She looked at Camila as if trying to piece things together. You were the one who helped my daughter, weren't you? Helena interrupted too quickly. The medical team took care of everything, ma'am. The mother frowned. That's not what they told me at the hospital. A heavy silence fell. Camila sensed that this was a dangerous moment, and an opening. I just asked them to look again, she said carefully. It all happened very quickly. The mother stared at Camila for a few long seconds. There was something there, doubt, lucidity, the beginning of resistance. Helena held out the glass with the medicine. You need to take it. The mother hesitated, and Camila understood the battle would be silent. It wouldn't be noisy. It would be slow and very dangerous. Camila didn't need to prove everything at once. She needed one piece of proof, single piece of proof that no one could erase. The attempt to remove her began the following morning. Helena changed the schedule without warning. Camila was pushed to areas far from the baby's room. Storage, guest wing, empty hallways. Nothing explicit, but the message was clear. Stay away. When Camila tried to approach the children's hallway, Helena appeared as if she had been summoned. There's no need to clean there now. Julia already took care of it. Is the baby okay? Camila asked, carefully choosing her words. Helena held the gaze for too long. As expected. And you don't need to worry about it. As if it were a whim. That afternoon, Camila found Julia sitting on the laundry room floor, her head in her hands. Are you well? Julia quickly lifted her face, startled. I am, just tired. You hardly sleep. Julia took a deep breath, as if holding something in her throat. I didn't want it to happen that way. Camila felt her heart race. What are you talking about? Julia looked around, as if searching for invisible cameras. Nothing. Forget it. And before leaving, he murmured, not everything here is as it seems. That night, Camila noticed something new. Her cell phone was losing signal in certain parts of the house. It wasn't a coincidence. It was controlled. And then he found their first mistake. The housekeeper's room. Camila was called to bring clean clothes. Upon entering, she noticed a slightly open cupboard. Inside, there were no clothes, there were bottles. Without pharmaceutical labels, some dark, others translucent, with handwritten notes. Camila didn't touch it. She didn't photograph it. Not yet. But she read enough to understand that wasn't treatment. As she was leaving, Helena was in the hallway. Did you forget something? She asked, too sweetly. No, only by handing over the clothes. Helena smiled. You've been showing yourself to be very curious. Camila kept a neutral expression. I do what I'm told. Just do that, Helena replied. Curiosity often has consequences. That was the first clear threat. That same night, the mother tried to go downstairs with the baby in her arms, without telling anyone. Camila saw her from afar and instinctively approached Madame. Be careful. Helena appeared almost running. I told you that you need to rest. The mother pressed her daughter against her chest. I want to stay with my daughter. That's all. Helena tried to smile. Sure, but now is not the time. Camila noticed her mother was more lucid, and Helena noticed it too. Later, Camila found a folded note inside the cleaning bucket. A short sentence, written in haste. If you stay, someone will get hurt. No signature. Camila sat on the bed, her hands trembling. This was no longer a warning, it was an ultimatum. She had two choices, leave and abandon the baby in their care. Or stay and become a real risk. She had already made that choice when she told the paramedics to wait. She wasn't going back on it. The tension exploded days later. Inside the baby's room, Helena entered without knocking, a smile on her face, her eyes wide with concern. I was looking for you. The mother was holding the baby in her lap. I'm fine, the mother said, firmly enough to sound strange. And I'm talking to Camila. Helena's jaw clenched. Camila's shift is over. You may leave. Camila didn't move. I'll stay just one more minute. Helena took a step. It's not a request. Before she could climb up, her mother spoke in a tone that made the air change. Leave her alone. Helena blinked, surprised. She took a step back, trying to regain her composure, and she left without saying anything more. When the door closed, the mother looked at Camila urgently. Are you sure about what you said? Did someone try to hurt my daughter? Camila nodded. I need to show you something, but not here. That night, the house seemed to be asleep when Camila heard footsteps in the hallway. Careful, silent. She opened the door just enough and saw Julia's silhouette descending the service stairs with something in her hands. Camila waited and followed. The basement door, which Helena said was just a storage room, was open. The smell of chemicals mixed with mold filled the air. Julia entered a small room and turned on the light. Camila peeked. A table, a cooler, several unlabeled bottles. Julia opened the box, took out a bottle, and stared at it for several seconds. That went far too long. Her hands were trembling. I can't anymore. ... double quotes, she whispered. Camila raised her cell phone and started recording. Julia put the bottle away, closed the box, and turned around, coming face to face with Camila. The scream died in its throat. You shouldn't be here, Julia said, panicking. Neither do you, Camila replied. What is this? Julia broke down, crying. I didn't want to. At first they said it was just to calm my mother down. Then it changed. How did it change? Julia swallowed back tears. Helena said the baby was the weak point, that it was just a scare, just a mild reaction. Camila felt her blood boil, and you believed that. I was scared. I should have stopped. I should have spoken up sooner. You still can, Camila said, but I need everything. Names, bottles, times. Before Julia could answer, a light turned on behind them. I knew I'd find you here. Helena's voice echoed in the basement. Roberto appeared right behind, blocking the stairs. That's over, Helena said coldly. Both of them. Camila gripped her cell phone tightly. It's not over. I recorded everything. Helena smiled. Did you record it? Who do you think will believe it? A desperate nanny and a foreign au pair. Roberto moved forward. Turn it off. It was then that a third voice cut through the air. Stay away from her. Everyone turned around. The baby's mother was at the top of the stairs, without a robe, without a vacant look. Cell phone in hand, dialing. I heard everything, and the police are already on their way. Silence fell like a sentence. Helena turned pale. Roberto stopped. Julia fell to the floor, crying. Camila felt her legs weakened, but she didn't fall, because in that instant she understood. Saving that baby had only been the beginning. Now, she was about to save the whole truth. The sirens arrived first as a distant echo. Then, they became real, undeniable. Helena tried to maintain her composure, but her voice came out cracked. You're making an irreversible mistake. Think carefully. The mother came down slowly, the cell phone still to her ear. I thought about it for months. I just couldn't trust myself. You all made sure of that. She spoke calmly, but firmly. They're in the basement. Yes, bottles, records. I have recordings. Roberto backed away. For the first time, he seemed cornered. I didn't mean to. I swear, ... double quotes, Julia repeated through tears. You'll have to explain everything to the police, the mother said. Everything. Red and blue lights flooded the walls of the mansion as the police cars pulled up outside. Doors opened, hurried footsteps. Police, hands where we can see them, the vials were collected. Camila's recording was handed over. Julia was taken in for questioning. Helena and Roberto left in handcuffs. The house fell silent again. But it wasn't the same heavy silence as before. It was a silence of endings. Hours later, as the sun began to rise, Camila sat in the kitchen, holding a forgotten cup of coffee in her hands. Her mother entered with the baby in her arms now, with no one behind her, no one controlling her movements. She wants you, he said, extending the girl's arm. Camila hesitated. I don't know if I should. You should, the mother replied, with a tired smile. You saved her life. More than once, Camila carefully picked up the baby. The little body was warm, alive, heavy, in just the right way. The girl gripped her finger tightly and let out a joyful sound, oblivious to the chaos that had almost killed her. Camila cried. "I almost left," he confessed. "I almost accepted the money." The mother nodded. "We all almost gave up. What matters is that you didn't give up on her." Days later, the story came to light. The investigation revealed bottles, records, messages. Helena and Roberto were arrested. Julia cooperated. But inside that house, something else remained. Time. Time spent with mother and daughter. Time for healing. Time for rebuilding. Camila received offers, lawyers suggested compensation, and people suggested she take advantage of the opportunity. She refused almost everything. It was left not as an au pair, not as an invisible employee. He came across as someone who chose to act when it would have been easier to remain silent. Months later, Camila walked in the garden with the little girl, who was learning to take her first steps, stumbling on the grass and laughing loudly. The mother watched from the balcony, finally present, finally whole. "You know, a lot of people saw the signs," she said. "But only you did something." Camila thought for a moment and replied, "Sometimes, those who have always been invisible learn to see what others ignore." The girl fell back down and laughed at herself. Camila laughed along, helping her to her feet. Some stories don't end with applause, they end with silence. The silence of a house that almost lost everything, the silence of a mother who finally woke up, and the silence of a baby sleeping peacefully, unaware of how close she was to the end. Camila could have left, she could have accepted the money, she could have pretended she didn't see anything, but he chose to act. And sometimes that's what separates a tragedy from a miracle, an ordinary person who refuses to be just a spectator. If this story touched you, leave a like, this helps the channel a lot. And sign up so you don't miss the next true stories full of intense twists and turns.